I'm going to do now is demonstrate something I use quite a bit in the studio, and that is throwing off the hump. It's a technique that's been around for as long as pottery has. I believe the Koreans and the Chinese and the Japanese used it all the time. But what it allows you to do is essentially work off just the top of a larger piece of clay. And the nice thing about it is that instead of centering the whole ball of clay, you're really just centering the top. In addition, it elevates the work so where you get a nice view of it. So whether I'm making dinner bowls, small casseroles, covered lids, sugar pots, creamers, mugs, goblets, these are all kinds of things that we can do with this technique. And again, you notice how really dry I'm throwing. I'm really trying to throw with as much slip as I can, although this morning I had to incorporate a little bit of water in with it. So I'm just taking an average, this is probably 2 pound, a pound and 3/4 on the top. And what I'm going to make here is a medium covered casserole. I just love to make lidded pots. More importantly, they're wonderful to employ them in the kitchen. One of the things that you end up doing with a lot of things that you make off the hump is that you end up trimming them. But sometimes a trimmed piece can be an elegant piece because it visually gives you a lift, visual, off the table. Like for example, if I go ahead and just more or less establish a baseline right here and put in that line right on that hump, that establishes the foundation for me. Once you start throwing with slip, and with a metal rib like this, you find that you're able to really compress that rim and the clay wall. Every little bit of slip that you take off really solidifies that clay wall to the extent that you can really push it around. So, for example, even though this is thrown off the hump, and I will be able to put a wire through it and comfortably lift it off because it's strong. What I want to do now is get an idea of where we are with the lid size. Now, since I have a rounded lid, I want to measure just to the center where it starts going down so that when I make a flanged top, it sits right in the middle and there's no movement. It fits perfectly. So since that top has been established, I can come back in here, kind of open that up a little bit more. Not much, but you can see the kind of cantilever you can get out of it. And more importantly, it is thrown with slip and the clay wall is strong so that when I put a wire through it, I'll be able to pick it up. So here's my wire. I'll go ahead and set that in, cut it right off. And then it's relatively strong. Now, normally I'll do a series of maybe a dozen or so of these, but for the purpose of this tutorial, I'll go ahead and make my lid right here and now. I just take a little bit more clay from the hump. One of the nice things about throwing off the hump is I've already established right there with this left hand what I'm going to pull. So that's been established. So I can go ahead and just pull that out, leaving enough clay at the top to square this off. You can see how I've left this rather thick rim, but what I'm going to be doing with it is splitting it, which you'll see in a second here. Now we can get a sense for how much more I've got to go. And I might have 3/4 of an inch. Once you start throwing off the hump, you'll start to train your eye quite a bit to where you'll be able to sense size in a much better way. In training your eyes, you'll find that you're not measuring as much. If I'm a little large, I can go ahead and just squeeze that back in just a little bit to compress it. And I got it. You can see it'll drop all the way to almost to the bottom, and that's what you want. So I go ahead and establish that bottom there. Take a little bit of slip off. And I'm able to take that lid and let them dry together. Turn this over in about an hour. Since I'm in relatively dry New Mexico, I can see those things dry fairly quickly.